Hey there, fellow gardeners. If you've been following the soil house for a while, you know I'm always on the hunt for game-changing techniques that can transform our gardens from ordinary to extraordinary. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to share something that's been quietly revolutionizing gardens across Japan for centuries, and it's finally getting the global attention it deserves. I'm talking about Bokashi composting, a fermentation-based soil amendment method that's so effective, it can literally triple your plant growth rates. I know that sounds too good to be true, and honestly, I was skeptical too when I first heard about it. But after 2 growing seasons of experimenting with this technique in my own garden, I'm completely convinced. The results have been nothing short of phenomenal, and I can't wait to walk you through exactly how this works and how you can start using it in your own garden right away. Before we dive into the how-to, let's talk about what makes Bokashi fundamentally different from traditional composting. The word Bokashi literally translates to fermented organic matter in Japanese, and that's exactly what sets this method apart. While traditional composting relies on aerobic decomposition, meaning it needs oxygen and takes months to break down, Bokashi uses anaerobic fermentation with specialized microorganisms to transform organic matter in just weeks. Here's where it gets really exciting. The Bokashi process doesn't just break down organic materials, it preserves nutrients that would typically be lost through traditional composting. We're talking about retaining up to 90% of the nitrogen, phosphorus, and other vital nutrients that usually escape as gases during regular composting. When you add fermented Bokashi to your soil, you're essentially giving your plants a superfood that's been pre-digested by beneficial microbes, making it incredibly easy for plant roots to absorb. The secret weapon in this process is a group of microorganisms called effective microorganisms, or EM for short. This consortium typically includes lactic acid bacteria, photosynthetic bacteria, yeasts, and beneficial fungi. These tiny workers create an acidic environment that pickles your kitchen scraps and garden waste, just like you'd pickle vegetables. This pickling process happens so efficiently that you can compost things traditional composting simply can't handle: meat, dairy, oils, and cooked foods, all without creating foul odors or attracting pests. Getting started with Bokashi is surprisingly straightforward, and you don't need a huge investment or complicated setup. I started my first Bokashi system with less than $50, and you can too. You'll need 2 airtight buckets with lids and drainage spigots at the bottom. Many gardeners use commercially available Bokashi buckets, but I've had great success with simple 5-gallon buckets fitted with spigots. The 2-bucket system is essential because while one bucket is actively filling up, the other is fermenting. The second component you'll need is Bokashi bran, which is essentially a carrier material, usually wheat bran, rice hulls, or sawdust, that's been inoculated with those beneficial EM microorganisms I mentioned earlier. You can purchase Bokashi bran online or from gardening stores. But here's an insider tip: making your own is incredibly cost-effective once you get the hang of the process. I'll be sharing my complete DIY Bokashi bran recipe in an upcoming video on the Soil House channel, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that. Once you have your buckets and bran, the actual process is beautifully simple. Every time you have kitchen scraps, vegetable peels, coffee grounds, fruit rinds, leftovers, eggshells, even meat and fish, you chop them into smaller pieces for faster fermentation. Add them to your active bucket, sprinkle about 2 tablespoons of Bokashi bran over the layer, and press everything down firmly to remove air pockets. This pressing step is crucial because we're creating an anaerobic environment where our beneficial microbes can thrive without oxygen. After you've sealed your bucket, the real magic begins. Over the next 2 weeks, those EM microorganisms start working their transformation. One of the first things you'll notice is liquid accumulating at the bottom of your bucket. This is Bokashi tea, and it's absolute liquid gold for your garden. I drain mine every 2 to 3 days using the spigot, and I never let it sit for more than 4 days because it can become too acidic. This bokashi tea needs to be diluted before use. I typically mix it at a ratio of 1 part tea to 100 parts water for most applications. You can use it as a soil drench to feed beneficial microbes directly in your garden beds, or increase the concentration to 1 part tea to 20 parts water as a foliar spray. I've noticed remarkable improvements in plant vigor and disease resistance when I use this tea weekly. Some gardeners even pour the undiluted tea down their drains to keep pipes clear and reduce odors. Talk about a multi-purpose garden product. The fermentation process in the bucket takes about 2 weeks once the bucket is full. During this time, you might notice a sweet-sour smell, sort of like pickles or sauerkraut, when you open the lid. This is exactly what you want. If you smell putrid, rotting odors, something has gone wrong, usually because too much air got in, or you didn't use enough bokashi bran. The fermented material will look pretty similar to how it went in, just a little bit broken down, often with white mold growth on top. And don't panic about the white mold. That's actually a sign of successful fermentation. It's the blue or black molds you want to avoid. Here's where bokashi differs most dramatically from traditional compost, and honestly, it's where many gardeners make mistakes in their first attempt. You cannot simply spread fermented bokashi on top of your soil like you would with finished compost. The fermented material is highly acidic, with a pH around 3 to 4, and it's still quite raw. Direct contact with plant roots can actually burn them. Instead, you need to bury the fermented matter in your soil and let it undergo a secondary composting phase. I use what I call the trench composting method with my bokashi. I dig a trench or hole about 8 to 10 inches deep in my garden bed, pour in the fermented bokashi, and cover it completely with at least 4 inches of soil. The magic happens over the next 2 to 4 weeks as soil microorganisms complete the decomposition process. During this phase, the pH neutralizes, nutrients become plant available, and the material transforms into the most beautiful, rich humus you've ever seen. Timing is everything here. I always bury my bokashi at least 2 weeks before planting in that area, though. Honestly, 3 to 4 weeks is ideal. If you're working with established plants, just dig your trenches between rows or around the drip line of larger plants, making sure to keep at least 6 inches of distance from stems and main roots. I've found that a single 5-gallon bucket of fermented bokashi can effectively amend about 10 to 15 square feet of garden bed, depending, of course, on your soil's initial condition. You're probably wondering exactly why bokashi produces such spectacular results, up to 3 times faster growth rates and significantly higher yields. The answer lies in the complete ecosystem transformation that happens in your soil. Traditional composting, while beneficial, loses a significant portion of nutrients through heat generation and off-gassing. Bokashi's cool fermentation process preserves these nutrients and actually makes them more bioavailable. The lactic acid bacteria in bokashi create an environment that's just perfect for beneficial soil organisms to thrive. These bacteria produce compounds that help break down organic matter further, fix nitrogen, and make minerals like phosphorus and potassium more accessible to plant roots. The yeasts and photosynthetic bacteria contribute B vitamins, enzymes, and growth hormones that directly stimulate plant development. I've seen seedlings in bokashi-amended soil develop root systems that are noticeably more extensive and robust compared to those in conventionally composted soil. Another factor is the improvement in soil structure. As bokashi breaks down, it creates a humus-rich environment that enhances both water retention and drainage, which sounds contradictory, but is exactly what healthy soil does. The organic acids produced during fermentation also help chelate minerals, making micronutrients like iron, manganese, and zinc more available to plants. This is particularly valuable if you're gardening in alkaline soils where these nutrients often become locked up. After 2 years of intensive bokashi use, I've learned some tricks that make the process even more effective. First, chop your organic materials into pieces no larger than 1 to 2 inches. Smaller pieces ferment faster and more completely. I keep a small cutting board and knife near my bokashi bucket specifically for this purpose, and it takes just an extra 30 seconds when I'm preparing meals. Temperature matters more than most guides tell you. The ideal fermentation temperature is between 68 and 86 degrees Fahrenheit. In winter, I keep my active bokashi bucket in a warmer part of my house, near the water heater or in a basement room. In summer, I make sure it's not in direct sunlight or anywhere too hot. Extreme temperatures can slow fermentation or kill the beneficial microbes. Moisture balance is another critical factor, you know. Your scrap should be moist, but not soggy. If you're adding very wet materials like watermelon rinds or citrus fruits, I recommend adding some dry material like shredded newspaper or dry leaves, along with extra bokashi bran, to absorb excess moisture. Conversely, if your mix is too dry, the fermentation process slows down. I aim for the consistency of a wrung-out sponge. Some gardeners ask me about what not to put in bokashi. While this system is remarkably flexible, I avoid excessive amounts of paper products, large bones that won't break down easily, and any materials contaminated with chemicals or pesticides. Also, while you can technically compost pet waste through bokashi, I don't recommend using that material in vegetable gardens. Flower beds only, if at all. Whether you're growing herbs on a balcony or managing a quarter-acre vegetable garden, bokashi scales beautifully. For apartment gardeners with container plants, even a single small bokashi bucket can provide enough amendment for your needs. You can bury small amounts of fermented bokashi directly into large containers, staying away from the center where roots are concentrated. I've helped several apartment-dwelling friends set up systems, and they're amazed at how much healthier their tomatoes and peppers grow. For larger gardens like mine, I run 4 to 6 buckets in rotation. This gives me a steady supply of fermented material throughout the growing season. I've developed a system where I bury bokashi in different sections of my beds on a rotating schedule, ensuring every area gets amended regularly. The beauty of this approach is that I never have to wait for a massive compost pile to mature. I always have something ready to use. Some creative gardeners are even using bokashi in their raised beds by creating what I call bokashi batteries. You dig a deeper hole in the center of your bed, install a perforated bucket or wire cage, and continuously add fermented bokashi throughout the season. The nutrients slowly leach out into the surrounding soil, feeding your plants all season long. I tried this last year with my tomatoes, and the results were phenomenal. Massive plants with fruit production that lasted well into fall. Beyond the immediate gardening benefits, bokashi offers some compelling environmental advantages that align perfectly with the soil house philosophy of sustainable, regenerative gardening. Every bucket of kitchen scraps you ferment is waste diverted from landfills, where it would otherwise decompose anaerobically and produce methane, a greenhouse gas far more potent than carbon dioxide. By controlling the fermentation process in your bokashi bucket, you're actually preventing methane emissions while creating something valuable. The economic benefits add up quickly too. Since I started using bokashi extensively, I've reduced my fertilizer purchases by at least 70%. The bokashi tea alone has replaced most of my liquid fertilizer needs, and the soil amendment has virtually eliminated my need to purchase bagged compost. If you make your own bokashi bran, which costs roughly a tenth of what you'd pay for commercial products, the ongoing expenses become almost negligible. I've also noticed a significant reduction in pest and disease pressure in my garden since implementing bokashi. The beneficial microorganisms compete with pathogenic ones, and the healthier plants are simply more resistant to common problems. This has further reduced my need for even organic pest controls, saving money while creating a more balanced garden ecosystem. Once you've mastered the basics, there are several advanced techniques worth exploring. One of my favorites is creating what I call bokashi layered beds in fall. After your growing season ends, you can create lasagna-style beds by alternating layers of fermented bokashi with layers of leaves, straw, or other brown materials. Cover everything with a thick mulch layer and let it overwinter. By spring, you'll have the most incredible planting beds with soil that's dark, crumbly, and alive with earthworms. Another technique I'm experimenting with is inoculating my garden beds with bokashi juice at different concentrations throughout the season. I've found that regular applications, every 2 weeks during active growth, seem to create a cumulative beneficial effect. The microbial diversity in the soil keeps improving, and I'm seeing better nutrient cycling and disease suppression with each season. For those interested in soil biology, you can even make bokashi-enriched compost tea by combining fermented bokashi with finished compost in water, aerating it, and creating a microbial brew that's incredibly potent. This combines the best of both worlds, the nutrient density of bokashi with the microbial diversity of mature compost. It's become one of my secret weapons for transplant establishment and mid-season plant revival. The Japanese soil fermentation method isn't just another gardening trend. It's a time-tested, scientifically sound approach that can genuinely transform your garden's productivity and your plant's health. The 3 times faster growth that bokashi enables isn't marketing hype. It's the natural result of giving your soil and plants exactly what they need in the most accessible form possible. Starting your bokashi practice today means you'll be burying your first batch of fermented goodness into your garden beds in just a few weeks. That means by this time next month, you could already be seeing the early benefits in your spring plantings. The sooner you start, the sooner you'll experience those remarkable growth rates and abundant harvests that make all of us gardeners absolutely giddy with excitement. I encourage you to start simple. 1 or 2 buckets a bag of bokashi bran and your regular kitchen scraps. Document your journey. Observe the changes in your soil and plants, and adjust the process to fit your specific garden's needs. Every garden is unique, and part of the joy is discovering exactly how bokashi works in your particular environment. If you found this deep dive into bokashi helpful, please subscribe to the Soil House channel so you don't miss future videos where I'll be showing you hands-on techniques including how to make your own bokashi brand, troubleshooting common problems, and sharing updates on my ongoing experiments. Share this article with your gardening friends who are always looking for ways to grow better food and build healthier soil. Together, we're creating a community of gardeners who understand that the real magic happens beneath the surface in the living soil that sustains everything we grow. Let's get fermenting, and let's grow something amazing together.